Thanks for being here with us today as we dive into Alma chapter 46.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating part of the Book of Mormon.
We see the Nephites facing internal divisions even after a big victory and some peace.
Yeah, it's like those challenges that come out of nowhere, right?
Right. And here it's this Amalekite guy.
Oh, yeah, he's a real piece of work.
He wants to be king, and he's not afraid to bend the rules to get there.
Not at all. Verses 4 and 5 show him using flattery and making promises.
So he's preying on people who want power.
Exactly, and that can be so tempting, especially for those who feel ignored or something.
Like they haven't been given a fair shake.
Right, he's charismatic for sure, but Amalekite doesn't seem to have much morality.
No kidding, he'll use anyone to get what he wants.
It really makes you think about how easy it is to forget the good things.
Yeah, it's like they've already forgotten the blessings God gave them.
Totally. Verse 7 says, "Now they had been in a state of peace for about 3 years."
They've seen miracles and God's deliverance, and yet they're already getting swayed.
Amalekite is pretty good at twisting things around.
That's for sure.
Verse 8 is a good reminder for all of us, I think.
What's that?
Thus, we see how quick the children of men do forget the Lord their God, yea, how quick to do iniquity, and to be led away by the evil one.
It's scary how quickly we can forget and get off track.
I know it's something we all struggle with.
Definitely. But thankfully in this story, we have Moroni coming in.
Oh, yeah, Moroni's a true leader.
He hears about what Amalekite is doing, and he takes charge right away.
No messing around with them.
Verse 11 describes him as angry.
I bet.
And he makes this dramatic gesture by tearing his own coat.
To make the title of liberty.
Exactly. And that becomes this powerful symbol for them.
It really does. It represents everything they hold dear.
Verse 12 says it's in memory of our God, our religion and freedom, and our peace, our wives, and our children.
He puts it on a pole, raises it up, and prays to God.
I can just imagine that scene, Moroni, this powerful figure holding up this symbol and praying.
It's pretty inspiring.
And you know, it's interesting that verse 14 mentions the term Christian.
Oh, yeah. It shows that people were already using that name back then.
And that their beliefs in Christ were central to who they were.
Absolutely.
And Moroni's prayer in verse 16 is so powerful.
What does it say?
He's praying for the cause of the Christians and the freedom of this land.
He's connecting their faith with their freedom.
He understands that they can't have one without the other.
That's such an important point.
It really is.
And then we see this idea of a covenant of freedom emerge.
Right. In verse 21, the people are so moved by Moroni that they gather together ready to fight.
They're ready to defend their way of life.
And they make this dramatic covenant with God.
By tearing their own clothes.
It shows just how serious they are.
You're not just making a promise, they're entering into a sacred agreement.
They even say, "We covenant with our God that we shall be destroyed, even as our brethren in the land northward, if we shall fall into transgression. Yea, he may cast us at the feet of our enemies, even as we have cast our garments at thy feet to be trodden under foot, if we shall fall into transgression."
Wow, that's intense.
That's from Alma 46.22.
It really makes you think about the promises we make in our own lives.
And the consequences of breaking them.
For sure.
And then Moroni shares a powerful story to really drive the point home.
What's the story?
The story of Joseph and his coat. It's in verses 23 and 24.
Oh, I love that story.
Moroni reminds them how Joseph stayed faithful even after being betrayed.
And how his coat, torn by his brothers, symbolized their broken unity.
Exactly. Moroni's message is clear. Division leads to weakness and destruction.
Makes sense.
He's urging them to stay unified, to remember their heritage and God's promises.
Especially when they face challenges.
And this call for unity couldn't have come at a better time.
How so?
Because Amalekite, seeing all this, decides to retreat.
He sees that Moroni's people are more numerous and his own followers are getting shaky.
Yeah, doubt's creeping in.
Verse 29 tells us, when Amalekite saw that the people of Moroni were more numerous than the Amalekites, and he also saw that his people were doubtful concerning the justice of the cause in which they had undertaken, therefore, fearing that he should not gain the point, he took those of his people who would and departed into the land of Nephi.
He realizes he might not win this one.
Especially not against Moroni.
So he takes off.
But Moroni isn't going to let him just disappear.
Nope. He knows Amalekite could stir up trouble with the Lamanites.
Let's start another war.
Exactly. So he goes after him.
He's got to protect his people.
Verses 30 and 31 show us that Moroni's a smart leader.
Strategic.
He wants to keep the peace they've worked so hard for.
He's not just seeking revenge.
No, he's acting out of love for his people.
And even as he's pursuing Amalekite, he offers him a way out.
A chance to change sides.
He gives the Amalekites
A choice. Join the covenant of freedom or face the consequences.
Verse 35 says, "And it came to pass that whomsoever of the Amalekites that would not enter into a covenant to support the cause of freedom, that they might maintain a free government, he caused to be put to death, and there were but few who denied the covenant of freedom."
It's a tough situation, but they're fighting for their survival.
Their freedom to live their faith.
And most of the Amalekites end up joining the covenant.
Maybe they were hoping for that unity all along.
It's possible.
And then Moroni does something really powerful.
What's that?
He has the title of liberty raised on every tower throughout the land.
Wow, that's a statement.
It's like a beacon of freedom.
Verse 36 says, "And it came to pass also that he caused the title of liberty to be hoisted upon every tower which was in all the land, which was possessed by the Nephites. And thus Moroni planted the standard of liberty among the Nephites."
It's a reminder to everyone what they're fighting for.
And what they believe in.
It must have been so inspiring to see that symbol everywhere.
I can imagine.
It probably gave them strength and courage.
A sense of unity. And it worked.
It did.
Verse 37 tells us, "And they began to have peace again in the land, and thus they did maintain peace in the land until nearly the end of the 19th year of the reign of the judges."
Wow, almost 2 decades of peace.
The power of unity and shared values.
But the story doesn't end there.
What else happens?
We learn about the deaths of many people during this time.
It's a reminder that life is precious.
Verses 39 through 41 talk about how some died naturally and others died in the faith of Christ.
Their hearts full of joy even in death.
It shows the strength of their faith.
The hope they had for the future.
It makes you think about what we leave behind, right?
Not just stuff, but, the impact we have on others.
That spiritual legacy.
Yeah, and this story shows that our lives matter.
That our choices have consequences.
And that those consequences can last longer than we do.
It's like Moroni and the title of liberty.
Started as just a piece of cloth.
But it became a symbol of hope and unity and faith.
It's amazing how powerful symbols can be. Think about how the title of liberty must have inspired people.
Seeing it on all those towers.
A constant reminder of what they were fighting for.
What they believed in.
It was a symbol of their covenant with God.
And with each other.
It makes me wonder what symbols have that kind of power for us today.
What inspires us? What unites us?
What would we be willing to stand up for?
Even when it's hard.
What values guide our actions?
Big questions.
Maybe we can find some answers by looking back at Moroni and the title of liberty.
It reminds us that freedom takes courage.
And commitment.
A willingness to stand up for what we believe in.
The Nephites knew their covenant wasn't just words.
It was a real commitment.
With real responsibilities.
They had to protect their families, their communities, and their faith.
And that responsibility gave them strength.
To unite and build a free and righteous society.
Well, this has been a fascinating look at Alma 46.
Yeah, a lot to think about.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been great exploring this with you.
We hope you've gained some new insights into the power of faith and freedom.
And the importance of keeping our covenants.
If you enjoyed this discussion, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more conversations like this.